version had Champion of the Parish, Silverblade Paladin, but those cards, the reason you won was because of Boros Reckoner and Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. Those are really the key cards in that matchup. Yep. So I think that Brad and Van Lunen kind of realized that, and they just said, we don't need those cards. Let's just really commit to this strategy. Add another High Priest to our deck. Add Blood Artist, which obviously works very well with our sack outlets and Blasphemous Act, and add Blasphemous Act to the main deck. And it sort of became kind of this aggressive deck that also has this backdoor combo kill to it, and it's a very interesting strategy, and I think it's very good against creature-based decks like Reanimator, which is very popular right now.
And that's exactly what you see Zachary Tyree is playing. He's basically taking the Junk Reanimator challenge. This is the best deck coming in. At least everyone believes that it is, and it's hard to argue after all of his success. But a lot of people feel that the Aristocrats, as you do see a Cartel Aristocrat, is paired up very well against this deck, and I think Blasphemous Act is a big reason why, but also that combo finish of Blasphemous Act, Boros Reckoner.
Yeah, and again, having any type of having a Wrath effect is generally, it's okay against Reanimator, but having a Wrath effect that can double as a combo kill is really just incredible. So that's why the Aristocrats Act 2, so to speak, is really a much better suited Wrath deck than a typical sort of just a deck that plays Supreme Verdict. But Tyree's deck is actually interesting because he plays Seance, which is something that we haven't seen a lot of recently. But he has Seance, he has one copy of Griselbrand, and he also has 2 Tristani Silesia Voices in his deck. Okay. So he's able to start making copies of those, populate those tokens that come into play.
All right.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting.
That's an innovative take on it, as we do see Friedman follow up with a Boros Reckoner, so definitely a good curve for him. As not only does he start off with a 2-drop and a 3-drop, but the other big thing is that now he's already got what is one half of the combo in playing Boros Reckoner. As we are going to see Zachary follow up here with a Arbor Elf. Of course, the Mulchid he did play on turn 2. It did reveal a Temple Garden and a Woodland Cemetery to hand, a Thragtusk and Avacyn's Pilgrim to the graveyard, and because he was over his card limit, he was actually able to discard Avacyn's Pilgrim for the turn, or excuse me, discard Angel of Serenity for the turn. So that's a big deal there.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like Ben has a second Reckoner along with a Lingering Souls and a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat as well. So you can just see how powerful this deck is. Blasphemous Act costs 9. If he plays the Aristocrat, it's effectively turned on because he can cast it, and then in response he can start sacrificing his creatures. So with this board, his Blasphemous Acts effectively become lethal now.
So again, this Aristocrats Act 2 deck is of course a deck that was designed again by Brad Nelson and Jacob Van Lunen. Jacob Van Lunen winning that PTQ in Philadelphia. Ben Friedman and a handful of other players have adopted that deck list, adopted those changes. But one thing that does stay the same is you do see Aristocrat, Boros Reckoner, and the other Aristocrat given the beatdowns here. So Grizzly Salvage here from Zachary is going to turn everyone in Burial Rites, a Obsidian Ghost Council, a Temple Garden, a Restoration Angel, and an Arbor Elf. So a timely Unburial Rites.
Timely Unburial Rites, the exact perfect card that he would need right here. He's able to put an Angel of Serenity into play, which would clean up Ben's side of the board. And Ben doesn't appear to have much removal right now to deal with that.
You see his hand of Doom Traveler, Boros Reckoner, and a Lingering Souls. So, I mean, he's off to a very good start, obviously, but he's going to be a bit behind here as we are going to see Unburial Rites flashback on Angel of Serenity. I think this isn't the first time we've seen this in this format. Only been seeing it for the past 5 weeks.
Arguably the most powerful creature in Standard.
Yeah.
Can take control of games very quickly, as you can see. Again, Ben still has a second copy of Boros Reckoner, and with Tyree at 9, a top deck Blasphemous Act can still easily win this game.
Yeah, and again, he does have 3 copies of that card in his deck to draw to. So normally you found that as like kind of a one-of, like a Miser's one-of back in Pro Tour Montreal, but people are actually starting to adopt that to being a real game plan in Standard now.
Well, I think it was tough in Montreal because Boros Reckoner was really popular. Saito kept posting those lists. People really understood how good Reckoner was, and they everyone was playing it. So it's kind of tough to play Blasphemous Act in your main deck if your opponent also has a Reckoner in play. But people started cutting the Reckoners from their main deck. Blue, Red, White isn't even playing 4 copies. A lot of them aren't even playing 4 copies anymore. So I think it's a little more reasonable to add Blasphemous Act to your main deck again.
And as you saw Angel of Serenity come into play, it did target those 3 creatures, the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, the Cartel Aristocrat, and the Boros Reckoner. Cartel Aristocrat did sacrifice the Reckoner, gave itself protection from white, so able to mitigate some of the damage from Angel of Serenity, be able to have a threatened play that actually does do something and push through a little bit of damage in combination with either Lingering Souls or Doom Traveler.
And Ben Friedman's playing Brad Nelson's deck. Again, I'm not sure who. I think Brad probably. Probably built this deck, gave it to Van Loon. I'm not sure what the origin is, but I believe we do have a deck tech of this deck available. So you probably watch that in the replays, and it'll be online pretty soon.
So you can definitely find out more information about it after this match, as you are going to see Ben play a Boris Reckoner, does play a Doomed Traveler.
And I like this play from Ben. He's getting as much damage in as he can. And again, the ability of Boros Reckoner with Tyree only at 9, now at 7, could easily start. He could still attack for the win.
Yeah.
You know, even though the Restoration Angel Serenity managed to make an appearance.
And if you're Tyree here, you are certainly looking for. I mean, public enemy number 1 is Thragtusk. It always is when you're being beaten down. So you're certainly looking for that card right now. But the other card that you do see in play among his lands right now is Vault of the Archangels. And that's something that can swing a game, provided Tyree is able to get a big enough board presence. Right now, he just has a small one. Now, for Friedman, you know that Tyree does have a Restoration Angel in his hand. He took it off that Grizzly Salvage. You're just kind of curious what other things does my opponent have in his hand, because it looks like he has, you know, in between 6 to 7 cards in his hand right now also.
Yeah, well, the great thing here, it looks like he also has a Seance. Looks like he might have tapped incorrectly there, because well, I'm not sure if he tapped incorrectly. If he could have tapped the Temple Garden instead of the Twilight Mar. Now he's not going to be able to flash back the Lingering Souls.
Yeah, looks like it might be a bit of a mistake.
Maybe a slight error, but he also has a Seance in his hand, and I'm surprised he didn't play a Seance there, simply because he has an Obza in his hand, in his graveyard, I believe, from the Grizzly Savage. So that's a reasonable card to put into play off of the Seance, because you know it's a 4-point life swing, and it would allow him to attack with the Angel Serenity, which I think he has to do. He can't just sit around here.
And Seance is a card that we'll bring up on the screen for you guys as well, because this is a card that, you know, people have tried to make work. You've seen Travis Wu try to make it work on his stream. I tried it for a week or two on my stream, and it's something that's so unique, I really couldn't make it work very well, and it's so obscure. Because one of the things with Seance that people forget, Osip, is that it triggers on both upkeeps.
Yeah.
It's on both turns, so it can make a blocker. Yes, it makes this token that does leave at the end of turn, but it's this really unique card, unique effect, and, you know, I don't know if that's the way to go with Junk Reanimator right now, but it's certainly something that people won't see coming.
Yeah, that's kind of why I like the Seance play there more, just because you can get that Obza into play. You'll gain 2 life. You do 2 to Ben. I probably would have attacked with the Angel Serenity. Ben's not going to block with the Spirit Token because he's likely wants to sack to the Cartel Aristocrat. So suddenly Ben's life total is at 12, not at 19. And then, you know, I'm not sure what other creatures Zach has in his graveyard, but again, you have the Vault of Archangels in play, so next turn you'll be able to attack again with the Angel Serenity and activate it and gain a little more life to put yourself out of burn range.
Sure. And now you do see Ben does do some attacking there. He does play and flashback Lingering Soul, so he's pushing through damage. One of the things you need to be able to do when you're playing a Chunk Reanimator is that when that Angel Serenity finally does come, and inevitably will come, you need to be able to beat a resolved one after it does come. And you see Ben is not having a ton of trouble doing that. He still has a good board presence. Reckoner post Angel Serenity is still a huge threat, as it really can't be blocked by it. And then you see that Lingering Souls can kind of swarm its way around him.
Yeah, and I think that Zachary's going to regret blocking with the token there, just because he probably didn't expect to lose his Arbor Elf, and I think his game plan was to try to get that other Angel's Serenity to resolve. And the other great thing about the Seance play last turn was Zachariah revealed a Thragtusk off of the Mulch on turn 2. So that's another creature he could have put into play this turn off of the Seance. And that's a huge life swing, obviously. So I think the whole game would have changed had that Seance been in play instead of a Lingering Souls. But we'll see whether or not Zach's actually able to pull this off.
And now we do see Lingering Souls tokens, tons of Spirit tokens coming out here.
It's so tough to be on the defensive when you're this low at life and your opponent has Boros Reckoner in play.
Yeah.
You know?
It's very scary.
And a Cartel Aristocrat too. It's like, okay, eventually it looks like he's going to be able to get there.
Yeah, because the thing that this deck can do is you do see Ben making some attacks here with Cartel Aristocrat, and it looks like everyone's going to come across here. The Spirit Tokens and the Reckoner basically saying, I dare you to block my Reckoner. Feel free. But the thing that's scary about this take on the Aristocrat, Osip, is that Blood Artist, right now, if he draws at any point, game over.
Yeah.
Because of Cartel Aristocrat, Blast Attack, if he draws at any point, game over. This is something that, a lot of decks don't have in this format. You draw this one card in combination with the other one, it's just like, oh, okay, you're dead.
Yeah.
And that's a nice inevitability to have when you're playing a deck.
Yeah. But again, I don't think Tyree's out of it. I'm not sure what's in Ben's hand. But again, if Zachariah just blocks the Cartel Aristocrat with Angel Serenity, blocks the tokens, he doesn't need. He could take the 3 off of the Boros Reckoner. It's fine. He doesn't have to block it. He could block it with Arbor Elf if he chooses to. But I don't even like that play just because I want to be able to cast Angel Serenity next turn.
Sure.
You know? So you really need that Arbor Elf. You can afford to take 3. It's fine. Just
gotta balance that life total out.
yeah, you have 3 flyers that can block the 3 tokens. Angel Serenity can block Cartel Aristocrat, and then you would end up taking 4 damage, which I think is fine because then you're going to cast Angel Serenity that can clean it up, and then you can start attacking with your Angel Serenity.
Sure.
Obviously, you're still in danger of being in burn range, but you need to be able to deal with the Boros Reckoner. And your only way to deal with Boros Reckoner is with Angel Serenity right now.
So now we are going to see Zachary draw. He draws an Overgrown Tomb that he cannot play untapped. That will kill him. So now, oddly enough, we might see something that I didn't think we were going to see moving into here. Is we might just see Angel Serenity come across, activate Volt, gain 5, deal 5,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like a fog. And that's what you see Tyree do.
Well, he doesn't really have many other lines right now. I mean, he could have cast Angel Serenity this turn had he had the Arbor Elf in play, but his only line right now is to just attack.
Yeah, maybe
hope Ben blanks.
fade some draw steps. And so far, Ben has missed as he's drawn a Dragon Skull Summon, and he does play that Isolated Chapel. Tyree draws a card. He draws Woodland Cemetery.
That's huge because that's the 7th land that allows him to cast Angel Serenity right now.
Now, does he have triple white? He does.
But he
Here's the thing with Angel Serenity, though, and it looks like you were going to bring this up, is
Because
that if he
could.
plays it, he sacks the Cartel Aristocrat, he draws a guy, and then Ben wins the game. Now you see an attack here again.
The thing is that if he it's true. If he has another creature, he'd be able to sack it to their Aristocrat.
Yep.
But he would need a second creature to draw because Angel Serenity would come down. It would target both those creatures.
Yep.
Ben can sack the Reckoner to the Cartel Aristocrat, give it Pro White, but he still can't attack through the Angel Serenity unless he draws another creature.
Correct.
So it's probably safer to just activate the. I guess it is just safer to activate the Vault.
Just keep going with the Vault,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and just hope that he bricks for X amount of turns and just try to get the win that way. Oh, it's risky.
It's definitely risky.
It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. You need to fade draw steps either way.
Yeah.
So which way is the best way to go about fading draw steps? That's the question you have to ask yourself.
I think it's probably right to. It's tough. Because again, it all comes down to how many creatures are left in the deck. I think it's probably right to just activate the Archangel.
And Tyree is coming to the same conclusion that you do. So in again, and now Friedman is going to untap. He's going to draw. He finds a Falkenrath Aristocrat, and that is going to do it. So Ben Friedman with the Aristocrats Act 2 does win game number 1, finally saying, no more lands, thank God. Took me long enough. I mean, he clearly had a lot of very good draw steps there, and Tyree had to get a little bit lucky, but I mean, that's magic. That's all part of it.
Yeah, but the thing is, if Tyree if Tyree plays the Seance early, gets back the opposite, I think it's easily winnable.
Also, you do see both players playing with sleeves there.
Yes.
This is a shameless cut to, because we always play with sleeves, of course. Hard not to.
Yeah, you need sleeves.
And if you're gonna play with sleeves, you might as well play with Ultra Pro sleeves.
They're the best.
They are absolutely the best. And this weekend, Star City Games Open Series Atlanta Featuring Invitational is brought to you by Ultra Pro. We appreciate them bringing this tournament to you guys. Ultra Pro sleeves been playing with ever since I started playing Magic many moons ago, almost a decade now. Ultra Pro, the standard in safe storage.
As I always say, don't just be a regular pro. Be an Ultra Pro.
Now that's a good slogan.
That's a good line.
We gotta talk to the guys over there about that. See if they want to change that.
I own that, by the way. I just came up with that.
Any royalties on the spot?
Yeah. I better not see commercials. with my tagline.
You hear them, Ultra Pro? Don't you steal this tagline. So we're going to take a look at the sideboard here very quickly. Tyree will be on the draw here, and with the Aristocrats becoming such a popular deck, or kind of like underneath the radar, excuse me, it's starting to rise back up in popularity now. The question is, does Junk Reanimator actually have sideboard cards against it? I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't, but taking a look here, one card that does stand out is 4 copies of Somberwold Sage.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of like Somberwold Sage in this matchup because, again, Ben does have a lot of removal. He has like Tragic Slip, he has Dreadbore, he has ways to deal with Somberwold Sage. But if you know your opponent has cards like Blasphemous Act, a card like Somberwold Sage will allow you to get one big threat into play without needing to wait a number of turns to get all your lands in play, or hoping to get a bunch of mana dudes, which are terrible against Blasphemous Act. So I think it's reasonable to sort of board out some of your Avacyn Pilgrims and cards like that, because you got to assume that your opponent's going to have a card like Blasphemous Act. Because even though this list is different from Martel's list, Martel did have Blasphemous Act in the sideboard of the Pro Tour. So as long as you're aware of this deck, you should kind of know what to expect after board.
And so you do see the Somberwold Sage is the card, obviously, that Brad Nelson has advocated quite a bit ever since his performance with Hoof. There it is. He was basically casting turn 3 Angel Serenities, turn 1 Mana Accelerant, turn 2 Sage into turn 3 Angel. So we might be in store for a little bit of that here. You also see those 3 Centaur Healers, a Gristlebrand, 2 Tragic Slips, 2 Abrupt Decays, and 3 Acidic Slimes. Abrupt Decay is likely going to join us here. Tragic Slip also could, but Tragic Slip doesn't seem like it's great here. It is really good at taking care of Falkenrath Aristocrat.
I think you also want to be able to deal with the Boros Reckoner, like we saw. It gets to the point where you need to be able to kill it.
Okay.
And especially if you know if they're trying to go for a Boros Reckoner or Blasphemous Act combo, having a way to just kill the Boros Reckoner, even though it's tough to activate, you know, it's still, it's a way, you're definitely going to be able to kill Falkenrath Aristocrat, which might be good enough. But randomly being able to kill a Boros Reckoner at some point during the game before they try to get their act combo going, I think you might just need the Tragic Slip. I think boarding in removal is a good plan because your high-end threats, like as long as you're able to start resolving Thragtusk Angel Serenities, you should be able to win. Sure. You just need to get to that point.
Sure, so you want to be able to interact on the early turn.
So you want Centaur Healers, you want your removal.
It's kind of funny because, you know, if you're Tyree, you have to be thinking maybe a little bit in part to yourself that yes, my opponent's playing the Aristocrats, but typically this deck only plays 1 Blasphemous Act somewhere in 75. We see that Ben has 3 in his main deck and 1 in his sideboard. On the flip side, if you're Tyree as well, you know, playing against Friedman in that game, he didn't see that many 1 toughness creatures. So you go by those Tragic Slips and you go, all right, well, how good are these? You know, if he had seen Blood Artist and Blood Artist maybe had a substantial effect on the game, I think he immediately reaches for those Tragic Slips. But because he didn't see that many 1 toughness creatures, maybe he slows down on the Tragic Slips. Maybe he doesn't bring them in.
Maybe. I think that players, especially in this format, are just so conditioned to think Tragic Slip is very good against Falkenrath Aristocrat, you know? Because of, you know, that zombie deck, people are kind of, I think Tragic Slip is sort of just saying, if he has Aristocrat, I need Tragic Slip.
Sure.
If I have it, why not bring it in, you know? So I think we'll likely see him bring those in. I'm not sure he's going to go for the Sage plan. It's interesting. I think it's a little bit, it might be good, but I don't think he has enough cards to board out. I think he really just wants the healers and his removal.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Sage plan, can take Friedman by surprise, but we're going to take a look at Ben's sideboard here. You see 3 Duress, 3 Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, 3 Intangible Virtue, 3 Tormod's Crypts, certainly going to join us, an Obsidian, a Dreadbore, and a Blasphemous Act. And I wouldn't be surprised, Joseph, to see that additional Blasphemous Act come in as well. The question is, outside of that Blasphemous Act and those 3 Tormod's Crypts, does he board in Duress? You know, maybe try to take some Mulches, some Grizzly Salvages, stuff like that. Does he leave in his Tragic Slips? I mean, this is one deck that certainly can control them better than the other decks in the format due to those 8 Aristocrats. You know, do we see Sorin come in, a card that's kind of slow but can provide a faster clock than you would expect because of that emblem ability?
Yeah, I think knowing that he's playing against another Lingering Souls deck, he probably doesn't want the Sorin after board. He might even board out the one that he has in his main deck. Definitely wants the Tormod's Crypts, but and maybe the 4th Blasphemous Act. But beyond that, I'm not sure there's that much he wants in this deck. Not sure he needs all 4 copies of Tragic Slip. Also don't love the 1 Sorin in his main deck.
As we are going to see a mulch here from Tyree, you're going to see 2 Overgrown Tombs, a Woodland Cemetery, and Avacyn's Pilgrim, so it looks like he's probably going to have to discard here. Now, one thing for Friedman in his hand, he is slow rolling a Tormod's Crypt. He has it in his hand and is not casting it as he has no reason to right now. Does not want to let Tyree know that he has that, as you're going to see Zach discard that overgrown to him. I almost called him David Tyree of the New York Giants.
Yeah.
One of them probably finer moments in your life.
And it's interesting because the Junk Reanimator deck, I think people are starting to realize they don't need to cast Unburial Rites to win. Their creatures are just so good, they can just win on Thragtusk, Restoration Angel, and Angel Serenity. And another card, which is actually pretty good, is Tristani, which we see a copy in Zachariah's hand. That card, you know, if left to its own devices, can win at games on its own. Yeah. So I think that, and it looks like Zachariah also has a Tragic Slip in his hand too, which is going to come in handy because I believe Ben does have a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
And now you are going to see Ben play a Lingering Souls here. So Doom Traveler into Blood Artist and the Lingering Souls. Not your everyday curve, but that's what the Aristocrats does. It has this unique way of building game states that are very favorable for itself. And then it starts to do some tricky things with those Aristocrats, with those Blasphemous Acts, which Ben does have in his hand. He also does have that Tormod script that he is, again, sandbagging for the right time.
It's really just a monster mash. Just a bunch of random creatures that happen to work well together.
It's really true. It's really true. It's fun to see decks like that do well.
Yeah.
At least for me it is, because it's just so different and unique. As you do see a Forest here, and now you're going to see Tristani. Now the question is, can he cast that?
It's the double, Yeah,
and it's green, green, white, white, and yeah, he played that land.
He wanted to play the Temple Garden.
Yep. And Friedman was immediately like that.
Friedman said, no sir, you played that Forest. You cannot take back that. Oh, wow. That's huge. Yeah. Because he really doesn't have a very good play now.
Yeah.
And like I said, Tristani is definitely one of those cards that can take over games if left unanswered, but unfortunately, you need to get him to play.
As you do see, Ben does draw another Tormod script here. He is going to play Tormod script now because he does have the other one in his hand. He can certainly establish the first one. Now you're also going to see him play Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. So now he has a Sacrifice Engine online for Blood Artist, and he can go right over the top now. And even Doom Traveler can get in here if it wants to, because, hey, it's still just going to be a point of damage to Centaur Healer blocks. But you do see Ben is going to sacrifice the Doom Traveler. Falcon Wrath Aristocrat is going to get a +1/+1 counter because of the trigger. It is a human, and you'll see a Spirit Token come into play right now as well.
And, you know, not the worst case scenario because he can actually cast the Tragic Slip still on the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. But again, probably wants that Tristani in play. Would have been amazing with a follow-up with Restoration Angel. But
yeah. It's kind of funny, you know, casting Tristani that turn would have been pretty good, but then he would have gotten punched in the face for a lot of damage here with the Aristocrat. So now, you know, this kind of works out in Tyree's favor accidentally. Tragic Slip is going to take care of that Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. You know, Ben will deal him a point of damage with the Blood Artist, but, you know, this could have been a lot more damage.
Yeah, it could have been much more devastating. And the thing is that Zach actually has, with the Centaur Healer and a Restoration Angel now, he's actually got a pretty good life cushion. And Ben doesn't have that much power. He really needed that Aristocrat.
Yeah.
Because the Restoration Angel is basically just going to shut down the attack. Zachariah can attack with the Centaur Healer now, and Ben basically can't do anything about it. Looks like we have a second Tristani.
Yeah,
the first Tristani.
So now we're going to see Tristani hit play. That card will bring up on screen for you guys so you can see the green, green, white, white legend from Return to Ravnica. All the things that it's going to do here. Centaur Healer is going to come across, and Tyree's basically saying, you need to have something for this Tristani right now, and this Centaur Healer, or I'm going to gain a bunch of life with Restoration Angel, blinking in and out, and Centaur Healer gaining life, and you're not going to be able to come back from that.
Yeah, and it looks like there is a Blasphemous Act in Ben's hand. And he might want to just cast it this turn. He'll be able to do 3 damage from the attack, and then 6 damage with the Blood Artist, I believe, maybe? But he'll be left with no gas.
Yeah, he'll be left with a Tormod script in his hand, Tormod script in play. So the question is it time to pull the trigger on this? Because you have to think, can I come back from this Restoration Angel and the Centaur Healer? You guys can see Ben's hand at home. We can see it here in the booth. Doesn't seem great.
No, and it looks like, yeah, if he was going to make that play, he went into Flashback Lingering Soul. So it looks like he's just going to say, all right, I'll find a way to deal with that card. I'm not worried. But he's going to be able to, you gain life from toughness, I believe, right? With Tristani?
Yep.
So he's going to be able to gain 4 from the Restoration Angel and then 6 from the Centaur Healer.
Yep. 3 from the comes into play, 3 from the comes into play.
Tristani ability, yeah. So, a huge life swing for Zachariah.
And so Zach does draw a mulch. He drew back-to-back mulches here. So let's see if he's going to start with a mulch. He is. So the 4 cards he's going to turn over here are a Temple Garden, Burial Rites, a Gristlebrand, and a Woodland Cemetery.
Wow. So great mulch because it basically requires the crypt to get activated.
Yep. Get past that part of the game.
Yeah.
You are going to see Woodland Cemetery come down here. Zachariah can't come across with a Centaur Healer without any fear. May have attacked with that Tristani too, honestly.
I don't see a reason why not to. It's certainly not blocking any of the attackers.
Yeah, it can't populate right now either,
Yeah.
so it might as well could get a little bit frisky. Get on in there. As it looks like we're going to see a main phase Restoration Angel here. It's going to blink that Centaur Healer, and you see Friedman going to his life pad saying, all right, how much life are you gaining? 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. All right, you're at 23.
Yeah, and, you know, so he's going to go to 10, 23?
Yep. As you do see, Ben does draw an important card for the turn. He draws a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
Yeah. So a good draw here. Again, if he draws a Reckoner, I think that's why he doesn't want to pull the trigger on the Blasphemous Act. He really just wants to try to combo kill because obviously Tristani is good, but if he's not populating, it's not going to be that devastating.
Now we're going to see an attack here with looks like just about every creature. Of
Yeah,
course,
why
trading
not?
off a Lingering, he's trading away a Lingering Spirit's token, but the Blood Artist is going to get that damage.
So he's still going to be able to get the damage in. Restoration Angel can't block the Aristocrat favorably right here, so very good attack by Ben.
And you saw Zachariah take a look at the Blood Artist. We're going to bring it up on the screen for you guys as well. This is a card that's been, its life in Standard has been interesting. We saw it in those black-red zombie decks, and everyone's like, this 2-drop doesn't even attack. I don't want it. Then you saw people pairing with Killing Wave and winning games by drawing multiple of these and fireballing people out with Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. It's had its home before, and it looks like it's truly at home here.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised it took people this long to sort of make that leap because it looks just perfectly like this list with Blasphemous Act and Blood Artist. It just looks like such a well-tuned list that has so many cards that work so well together.
Yeah.
I'm surprised more people sort of haven't adopted this strategy. Again, this deck is relatively new. Jake Van Lunen sort of brought it on everyone's radar screen last week. But again, the ideas, are there. People have known about Blood Artist. They've known about Blasphemous Act Reckoner, that combination of cards. It just took a while for people for someone to sort of come to the conclusion, hey, wait a second, the deck that won the last Pro Tour, a few changes here and there, and suddenly you have this really well-oiled machine with all these really cool, intricate combos in it.
Yeah. So we do see these attacks take place here. Some damage will happen. Restoration Angel looks like it jumped in front of that Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. A Spirit was traded off. So we do see an indestructible Falcon Wrath Aristocrat here. So let's see what Tyree's going to be able to muster on his turn, because even though he's doing well on the life total front, things aren't going as well as they would maybe seem.
No. Well, he did draw an Angel Serenity, which is a pretty good draw right here.
That is, I don't know if you know, is that a good Magic card?
That is a good Magic card.
Yeah.
It gives him a way to actually get the Aristocrat and some of those tokens off the board if he chooses.
Maybe even
probably
get rid of that Blood Artist.
Yeah, but again, we know that Ben has a Blasphemous Act in his hand, so although again he's going to be able to gain 6 life there. But Tristani's ability is just very, very frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, you see this game just going really back and forth as you see Tyree figuring out what do I want to target with. What do I want to target here with Angel of Serenity? As you see, he looks like he's going to target one of the cards in his graveyard too. I think this is going to allow Ben to pull the trigger on one of those, pull the trigger on that Crypt. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. So you see Falcon Wrath Aristocrat and the Blood Artists are going to go underneath Angel of Serenity. Friedman's going to pull the trigger on the Crypt. He's going to remove the graveyard of Tyree, and I think we might see the Tristani and the Healer come across now, and we do. So an attack for 5.
So not a bad situation for Ben, because Ben can actually, if he draws a land, I believe he'll have enough to cast Blasphemous Act and cast the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat that he gets back from the Angel Serenity.
So you do see the untaps there, and you see Ben patiently holding on to Blasphemous Act. You see the importance of it in this matchup.
Yeah.
It has these interesting spots where you can cast it and just have it be a real game ender, or at least turn around a game. Typically in these aggressive decks, or against the Junk Reanimator deck, when they play an Angel of Serenity, there's no coming back from it.
Yeah, and the thing is, Ben I believe Blasphemous Axe 8 colors and a red, and
Correct.
it's 1 less for each creature in play. So currently there are 7 creatures in play. So Blasphemous Axe would only be 2 mana.
Yep.
So he can cast it, kill the Angel Serenity, kill all the creatures in play, get back his Blood Artist and Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, and then he can play the Blood Crypt that's in his hand, recast the Aristocrat, and attack for 4. Now, again, that's all the gas that he has left. That's all he's spent. But he still has a Tormod's Crypt to deal with the Unburial Rights in the graveyard, or any kind of Unburial Rights shenanigans. And I think he's in a good position because, again, Falcon Wrath Aristocrat is a very tough card to deal with. And I believe 2 Tragic Slips are already used, or in the graveyard.
And you see Tyree's hand right now. It looks like that hand is 3 lands and a mulch. So he's going to cast this mulch here. And that's going to reveal a Grizzly Salvage, a Thragtusk, an Angel of Serenity, and a Tragic Slip.
And there's
so
the second Tragic.
Those are all going to the bin. And as you said, Osip, that second Tormod script is pretty crucial right now because it turns off Unburial Rights, which is probably the best thing that Tyree could hope for in that situation, or in the current situation that we're in, and it doesn't do anything right now. And now you see Ben draw a Blood Artist, you see him draw a Doom Traveler, so now he's coming across for 4 again, and now that Aristocrat is protected a little bit, as you're going to see him sacrifice the Doom Traveler, 1 from the Blood Artist, plus 1 from the Human Sacrifice, and a Spirit Token going to come into play. So a game that Friedman was behind in has just turned around dramatically.
Yeah, and suddenly he's got Zachariah on a 2-turn clock.
Yeah.
And I believe Angel Serenity is probably the only one of the few outs here.
So let's see a draw step here. Unburial Rights is the draw step.
So again, not the worst draw. At least it forces Ben to use the Tormod's Crypt. So if he draws another Grizzly Savage or another Mulch, maybe he's still alive a little bit. But he's been a lot of his good threats are in the graveyard. Like his two of his best answers to Aristocrat are in the graveyard already.
Yep.
He doesn't have any more Tragic Slips.
And so now you see Tyree realizes that he does have to cast his Unburial Rights. It kind of stinks that he has to, but he does, so that he can return on his outs for the next turn. As you said, if he does draw Grizzly Salvage or if he does draw Mulch, so he just does pass the turn back here. Friedman's going to untap. He's going to draw a card. Let's see what he draws for the turn. As it looks like a spell as he's reorganizing his mana.
So many good draws here. Even a Orzhov Charm, which I'm not sure. I mean, he might not have in his deck, but Orzhov Charm would be great here, just getting back a Doom Traveler. But yeah, he doesn't really need much else. I mean, he's got enough good cards. He's got the 2-turn clock in play already.
And you see an attack here, 4/6. He's basically just trying to fade something huge. And there's a Boros Reckoner post combat. And so Friedman feeling pretty good. Hands.
Grizzly Savage, Angel Serenity. No.
How about a land?
Wow.
So Ben Friedman, in a game that looked like he was behind in, does win with the Aristocrats Act 2, 2-0, defeating Mr. Tyree and Junk Reanimator, the boogeyman of the format.
Yeah, and you know, I saw Van Lunen beating people at the PTQ last week the same way. Reanimator matchups, it's very good for the Aristocrats Act 2 because they just attack you from so many different angles, you know. They have that sort of backdoor combo kill with Blasphemous Sack and Boros Reckoner. Falcon Wrath Aristocrat is still very, very good against that deck. They don't have many ways to answer it. Obviously, they have Lingering Souls, but, you know, Ben has Lingering Souls copies of his own to fuel the Aristocrat. Not to mention, he has humans that can just pump up the Aristocrat so that you can't just chump out with 1 token anymore. So